Station of the Cross Studios. This is Ask a Priest Live, because Father knows best. And now, your host, Jordan Pacheco.
God be praised in his angels and in his saints. Hello, everybody, listeners and viewers all. Welcome back to Ask a Priest Live. I'm your host, Jordan Pacheco. Very happy to be with each and every one of you today. I hope you've been having a good day. Let me tell you, for all my fellow friends who are here in the great state of Colorado, it's that time of year where the weather of our lovely state starts to get very fickle. So I complained last week it was cold as an icebox. Well, it's really hot outside right now, so I don't know what's up. So if you ever visit Colorado, you'll notice that some of your friends who are natives here, we have, let's say, rope to pull us out of places in case it's muddy or snowing. But in the back, we also might have some flip-flops and some shorts and like an umbrella for the sun. I don't know. It's weird. Let me tell you a really quick story. Then we'll get to these great questions that we have. But I just wanted to point out, once long a time ago, now a decade, goodness, I used to be a waiter. And I remember it was a day in May. And I woke up that morning and it was frost all over the car, right? Take a little second to make sure that it's running warmly. And by noon that day, when I was finishing my shift, it was like 70 degrees and climbing. So that's the kind of day that we're having right here today. But thank God for weather, because if we didn't have weather, it mean that we'd be dead. So, hey, I got Father Joseph Dalimata on with me, Fraternity of St. Peter. It's always a pleasure, Father. I feel like it's been a little bit of a second since we've seen each other. So how are you doing?
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. I'm doing really well. It has been a while since I was on the show with you, I think, but I'm doing well. We're here in Alpha. The weather is very stable, although people have been complaining. It did get down to, I think, 16 degrees last week, so it's pretty cold for El Paso. But yeah, I'm doing well. Been doing some travels. I was in Mexico on a mission trip.
Oh, wow.
For the first 10 or 12 days of the month of January of the year, and that went really well. And yeah, now I'm here just working at the parish and gearing up with some of the youth summer programs that I do. We're trying to get a lot of that stuff lined up, open up applications to get off the ground. So it's been good. Been doing well.
Well, you've been busy jet setting, running around all over the place. So we're very grateful that you've stopped by to answer some great questions from our wonderful folks out here. So we'll get off right to the races. We have some fun ones today, Father. Buckle up now. Let's open up those phone lines, friends. 1-877-511-5483. You can also email your questions for Father Dalimata, priests@thestationofthecross.com, as well as type up a thumb up on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. There it is. Forget me. Let's go to the questions. This one comes from Oscar. A good question here. Hey, Father, what would happen if the Pope aligned the Holy Week with, rather the calendar of Holy Week, with the Orthodox Church? Wouldn't this clash with the traditional communities since they follow the traditional calendar?
Yeah. Thanks, Oscar. It's a good question. My understanding, and Jordan, you are on this show almost every day, so you probably know more about what goes on in the Catholic world of conversation than I do, actually. My understanding is that this year it's more the case that the calendars are aligning, or may align, kind of regardless of whether or not we change. So the fact is, like, it just so happens to be that even though we compute the date of Easter differently, that this year the two dates align. So it wouldn't clash with our calendar. It's just that so the Pope wouldn't be changing anything about the Roman Catholic calendar. It just so happens to be the case that they're aligning on the same day as how the Orthodox also calculate the date of Easter, which, does anyone know when the last time that happened even was? I don't know. I'm sure some actuarial scientist somewhere could figure that out for us. But yeah, I think that's the conversation. So it wouldn't clash with anything. At least I'm sure whatever may happen or may not happen would clash with a lot of people in terms of the Pope's plans for that coincidence. But it doesn't involve any changing of the calendar. It wouldn't affect the traditional communities. We would still celebrate Easter as normal on the traditional calendar.
This is a question that's hopefully close to you. Anonymous from Texas. Interesting here. Father, I knew someone who was in an immoral relationship, and I tried to warn them about sin and that our judgment day is coming. The reason was because I read in the Bible that if you try to at least persuade a person to turn to God, you at least save your own soul. But I worry that I may have judged them. I know that thou shalt not judge, and I believe I was just warning them.
Yes. Well, Anonymous, I would say there's a couple things. One is it's certainly good to have a concern for the salvation of others and to do everything we can to attest, to witness to the truth, and in the hopes of helping bring them closer to God. St. Paul does talk about, the way in which if we're present and witnessing scandal, we at least sort of save ourselves from participating in that sin if we stand up against that. It wouldn't, strictly speaking, be the case that just because you warned somebody else against sin, therefore I've now saved my own soul. I don't think we could say there's a direction there. Could at least say that it is a good thing to strive to do. That being said, I do so definitely in a way that avoids any sort of authoritative statement of you are certainly going to hell if XYZ. I mean, none of us can say that about any particular person, right? So to condemn them personally would be maybe where you'd be concerned about being judgmental or judging others. We can and do judge actions. That's what we must do. But we leave the judgment of the person and up to God, because there's more, there's three fonts of the moral act: object and circumstances. And so you're pointing out the object, what they're living is immoral. The intention, of course, is a font of the moral act. It doesn't justify other things, but it must be there. And then the circumstances of people's lives as well. So I would say we strive to communicate charitably with people about the truth that we think will help them, but we do so in a way that doesn't fixate on the certainty of their personal guilt. So, I hope that clarifies a little bit of what you're striving to do in witnessing to others about the truth of their relationships.
You're listening to Ask a Priest Live. We're on today with Father Joseph Dalimata, Fraternity of St. Peter. Phone lines open, friends, at 1-877-511-5483. Well, this is a question that's topical for my family, considering what we've done. But hey, Andrea, thank you for calling in from Florida. And what's your question for Father?
Hi, George. Hi, Father. Thank you. So my husband and I are going on a cruise. We were invited to this cruise. And as it turns out, we're leaving on a Saturday, and we'll be on the ship all day Sunday with no opportunity to be on shore to go to a mass. So again, we didn't do this intentionally, but what do I do now, right? It wasn't intentional, but what should we do because we can't go to mass? And obviously I would never book or agree to going to a cruise or anything that I can't go to mass on Sunday. I get that. But what do we do now?
Yeah, Andrea, thanks for calling in. And it's a good question. My principal recommendation, and this is not to pass the buck, but would be to talk to your parish priest about it. Have you brought this up with your parish priest at all?
Not yet, but I'm a religious education teacher, so I will definitely talk to him. Yes.
Yeah, and I think the main reason I say that is because generally priests agree that for legitimate reasons, particularly for vacations, and you can grant a dispensation if it's a rare sort of situation. I know priests who say, well, if you're in a certain situation where your son can go on this excursion, or they're going to do this thing or that, and it's rare and it's very good for them, and there's a lot of positive reason there, that the Sunday obligation is something the parish priest could choose to dispense you from without sin. There's moral impossibility. So it seems like you're of the right intention, the right mind, and you'd never do anything that you knew to be gravely sinful. So I would say talk with your parish priest, and just because, he's the one with authority over you who could dispense you from that. The other option is just to say, where is my heart in terms of just generosity? Do I back out of this because I'm just, my relationship with God is that important? But we wouldn't want to be so black and white that we say the church never, the church is an understanding mother and can say things like, oh, we understand, and here's just what you can do. Or being able to attend, a mass on Saturday evening before you leave to fulfill your obligation. Those sorts of things to sort of find a solution to that. But that would probably be my principal recommendation, would be talk to your parish priest and just see if he can grant you that dispensation, which I think it's legitimate to ask that under certain circumstances.
Okay. Thank you so much. God bless.
Yeah, of course. You're welcome.
1-877-511-5483. Again, that's 1-877-511-5483, or email your questions, priests@thestationofthecross.com, as well as keep typing up those questions, friends, on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. Couple of minutes here before the music. Love this question off of YouTube. Father, why do Protestants donate more to charity and to their church compared to Catholics?
Do they?
Yeah, I know, right? I challenge. I think generally speaking. Now, if we want to really break down, fun fact: Latin mass goers donate most. Haha. But no, I'm just playing. But yeah, I say that I think Protestants do more tithing. Like the 10% is a little more strict with them.
Well, probably because Protestant pastors are more motivated to make sure that people tithe because they have to raise a family. They have to raise their salary, those sorts of things. It is, I would say at least, I don't know if they actually give more. I just don't know. I'm not saying that they don't. They talk about it a lot. I mean, I don't know. Different parishes handle things differently. Some parishes, you have to actually put a card on file. Like there's a huge Protestant church in El Paso called Abundant Life or Abundant Living, and you have to submit a tax return, and they will take a credit card on file and just automatically charge you 10%. Maybe they're more aggressive about it than Catholics. I don't know.
I think they might be more aggressive. I mean, let me tell you, I'm very glad the Catholic world has caught on to the QR code for those who don't really carry cash when the basket comes around. But it took us a while. Do better, papists. No, I'm totally just playing. Hey, listen, you're on with Father Joseph Dalimata today, Fraternity of St. Peter. We got a lot of great questions on the document, and we want yours, friends, to be part of them. Phone lines open at 1-877-511-5483. Looking ahead on the document, we have, Nathan, I was hoping we get to this question. A question about dating somebody who has polar opposite faith values than you. Gonna be a very fun answer. You might not like it, Nathan. We're here to help. Hey, I'm Jordan Pacheco. We'll be right back.
iCatholic Mobile is a proud sponsor of the Station of the Cross. Solid connections, reliable data. That's iCatholic Mobile, a 5G wireless provider dedicated to your faith and values. Enjoy unlimited talk and text, dependable coverage nationwide. And every plan has unlimited data and free roaming in Canada and Mexico. iCatholic Mobile, the service that connects you to what matters most. More info at iCatholicMobile.com.
Download the app to take our programming with you wherever you go. Hear what listeners are saying about the regularly updated iCatholic Radio app.
The programs on iCatholic Radio are uplifting, educational, and have served to deepen my faith as a Catholic. Thank you for this amazing station.
Download the free iCatholic Radio app in your Android or Apple store today. If you already have the app, please consider giving us a 5-star review or telling a friend about it.
Please join us in a prayer to our guardian angel. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. O holy guardian angel, take care of our soul and body. Enlighten our mind that we may know the Lord better and love him with all our heart. Help us in our prayers so that we may not give in to distractions. Assist us with your advice so that we may see the good and carry it out with generosity. Defend us from the insidious snares of the enemy and sustain us in temptations, that we may always be victorious. Remedy our coldness in our worship of the Lord. Cease not to protect us until you have brought us into paradise, where we will praise our good God together for all eternity. Amen.
You're listening to Ask a Priest Live from the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network and the iCatholic Radio mobile app. Give us a call at 1-877-511-5483 or send us an email at priests@thestationofthecross.com.
God bless you, listeners and viewers all. Welcome back to Ask Ask a Priest Live. I'm your host, Jordan Pacheco. Hope everything is going well. We have a great show ahead of us today. We're on with Father Joseph Dalimata, Fraternity of St. Peter. Definitely want to get your questions in. Go on and call at 1-877-511-5483. Again, that's 1-877-511-5483. Nathan, I'm so grateful that you have asked this question, dude, because let me be honest, especially as a man who's leaving his 20s but is not out there yet, this is like a huge one, I know. So we're going to do our best to help you out here. But Nathan says this, Father: I, 25 years old, have been dating my girlfriend for about 4 years now. And recently I've started practicing my faith again. Now she isn't Catholic, baptized, or fond of religion, so the news was a shock to her. We've discussed raising children if we were to get married, and she's recently been more open to our children attending Catholic school, going to church every Sunday, receiving the sacraments, etc. Despite this, she's made it clear that she has no desire to convert. She stated that she will share her views on abortion and contraceptives to our future children, and this is my main concern. Father, how do I move forward? I'm stuck on the fact that my son and daughter may be taught about intrinsic evils, in addition to the fact that we would be hearing conflicting viewpoints from both parents.
There's something I say to every marriage prep couple that I do a lot of marriage prep in our parish. Young and inexperienced though I am, so may God provide all that is lacking in what I say to them. But I do say universally two things, actually. One is I tell everyone you're going to have a hard marriage, like regardless of how well their marriage prep goes. You know, I don't say it like doom and gloom. I'm just like, look, like it's going to be hard. Like it is going to be hard. And that's even if people agree on everything. That's probably, you know, one of the main things I say. The second thing that I say is what an older priest shared with me. He said, one of the purposes of marriage preparation is to teach people now what they're going to fight about when they get married, so that they can sort of accept now whether or not they're willing to negotiate a lasting peace with someone for the rest of their life when they know that these are going to be the difficulties they're going to have, right? So part of the process of going through marriage prep is negotiating with what are the difficulties that are acceptable to you and what are the difficulties that are not acceptable to you. And can you move forward accepting that these difficulties will be maybe a part of your life forever together? Now, maybe things will change, but maybe not. But you're getting married to that person as they are right now. So you want to know that you're okay being married to this person, raising children with this person as they are right now with their opinions for the rest of your life. They may never change. Let's assume they won't, because you're marrying them as they are right now. Also, that would be sort of placing a future condition on the exclusivity and permanence of your marriage, which would actually invalidate it. So you're not allowed to do that. Like, I will marry you and stay faithful forever if you change 5 years down the road when we have kids and have to talk to them about serious matters. Like, you can't do that. In terms of how to move forward, look, man, like, don't marry someone that you have fundamental differences with on the nature of what's acceptable morally and basically the structure of moral reality. I mean, that is not a good idea. It is not a good idea to marry someone when you have that profound of differences. I'm working with a couple right now. The gal's Mormon, the guy's Catholic. I've told them I think it's a bad idea because they have fundamental differences, an idea about who God is and the sort of God that we have. That being said, they are really good at negotiating, and I think they could have a fairly healthy relationship on a human level, and even on a spiritual level, perhaps more than some Catholics, because they're forced to negotiate more clearly. So I don't think it's a good idea in that case, but they also agree on all these other things, morally speaking. So it's not the same problems. It's more maybe an intellectual or faith-based thing. But in terms of like the sort of stuff you're asking about, like, I would just say don't marry her, to be honest. Like, don't do that. It is not going to be good for you. It's not going to be good for your children. You guys, the possibility and the predictability of a massive division is astronomically high. So set yourself up for success by choosing to marry someone who shares your values. And I'm not even saying shares your values is such a dumb phrase to use here. How about somebody who clearly understands the structure of moral reality? At least in terms of avoid evil and do good. Because if you're talking about those sorts of things, you're gonna it would be even more disordering to do that than to marry someone who said, I'm going to teach our children that they can shoot themselves in the head if they're having if they don't like being alive anymore. I'm going to teach our children that they can euthanize themselves, or others for that matter. Like if grandma's inconvenient to you, like dad thinks you shouldn't, kill grandma, and I think you should. So, you have to discern and make your choice. Like that is not setting yourself up for success, Nathan. Yeah, Jordan, I would be curious to hear more of what you have to say about that. Just being, maybe being somebody closer to that situation than I am. But
well, you said everything right on the money. So I'll just say this, Nathan. Let me tell you very briefly, but as somebody who has experienced some of the worst kind of wounds in regards to this very sort of question. I think that especially now you being 25, dude, because I remember being 25 too, and to be in a relationship for 4 years. I know that this is a really difficult thing I'm going to say, but I'm just going to say it, dude, because I love you and you trusted us enough with your answers and with your questions. And I want to really honor that. I want to honor you. And also this question or something like it is something that's very common for a lot of our listeners and viewers. And so I just want to be very, very honest, because guys, I'll be like, marriage is, as fathers point out, marriage is already, like, in the best of circumstances, trench warfare. It is tough. Our Lady at Fatima talks about the last attack being on the family. I've experienced that very personally. I think I get it. Why there's such a trash divorce rate, why there's so many people terribly unhappy in their marriages. And part of it is just because their discernment was warped, because we're dealing with the passions. And so I know that there's a lot of emotional stocked up with this, but Nathan, I think you're asking the right kind of questions. Marriage is not just about the bright, fuzzy, happy sort of feelings. And it's not just about like desiring to know that how hot your spouse is. Marriage is really serious because it is about finding somebody who is going to help you get to heaven. I mostly say by working at your purgatory time, I've realized, but nonetheless, that's it. So if you have such a fundamental disagreement where it's not even a tolerance of living out a Catholic lifestyle, which in a mixed marriage, that is a marriage between a Catholic and a non-Catholic, that the Catholic living has to be the respect. It has to be the norm. It's not the exception. It is the rule, right? If you already have a very fundamental disagreement about the nature of things like the sanctity of life and about contraception, it's only going to get worse, brother. It's not going to get better. And even marriage between two Catholics who kind of get it is difficult enough. So I'm going to say you're going to have a really serious conversation, because I will guarantee you that if you go ahead and try to push this, you're going to find it. There's a lot of anger that you could probably hold. And so I've heard the best piece of advice when it comes to kind of questions like this is always choose regret over resentment. So always choose what could have been, but yet this was an objectively just a way smarter idea when it comes to who I'm giving my heart to and how I'm giving my heart than doing something or trying something that is already like slated with a lot of negatives, dude. So if you were my younger brother, I would sit down and I'd say, I think you should have a serious conversation. But I would recommend to anyone Catholic who is trying to date somebody and trying to get married and really wants to set themselves up for a good, stable Catholic marriage and a Christian family, that you need to have somebody who agrees, as Father said, on these basic fundamentals. And I would just add that you also need somebody who has had longevity of proving that they agree with these fundamentals. And so I think that you have some hard conversations ahead of you, Nathan. I can't tell you just break up and don't worry about it or anything, but I would just want to say that you should really meditate and keep a very, very sharp eye out, because I would hate for you to kind of go through some of the stuff that I have gone through. That sound fair, Father?
Sounds fair to me. Sounds fair to me. I know that you have experience in this area.
Yep, yes, so, I do. Yeah. More than I bargained for, but now I think I've been given a grace to kind of tell you, Nathan, watch out. That's all I'm going to say. I'm praying for you, brother. And hey, thanks for sending in that question. Like I said, a lot of listeners and viewers, we get questions kind of in this very similar strain. And we actually get calls even from married couples, and maybe the husband or the wife has reverted, or maybe they've been Catholic, and it's kind of hard to have a war in their household and they see how it's affecting their children. So that is all I'm going to say. We're going to keep trucking with these questions now. 1-877-511-5483. Again, that's 1-877-511-5483, or email your questions for Father Dalimata, priests at thestationofthecross.com. Question here from Brother Knight Scott. A couple of questions here. Number one, Father, if a church has multiple burial sites, how do they determine where any one parishioner will be buried? And two, if a Knight of Columbus dies, what is the proper ceremony that the church should set up for the funeral?
In terms of multiple sites, I think that actually is up to the family as far as I know. Most people, if they want to be buried in a Catholic cemetery, either them or their family will purchase, the plot in the cemetery. So I think that would depend on the person and their family's choice in terms of where the burial would happen. Unless a particular church had particular reasons for promoting maybe one or choosing one site over the other, I wouldn't say that there has to be a specific one. In terms of the Knights of Columbus, the church in itself doesn't have any regulation or doesn't have any process for that, aside from admitting the normal Knights of Columbus, honor guard, and whatever they may want to do. In fact, even in the traditional liturgies, in particular for the burial site, there's a custom like funerals and marriages that have the most local custom traditions kind of attached to them, even in the traditional rituals. So I know that there is oftentimes an honor guard or presentation of colors at a Knight of Columbus's funeral. And say it mostly comes down to the degree of what your pastor admits in terms of the ceremonies that the Knights of Columbus themselves have set up. So I would say, having the Grand Knight of the Council contact the church and what is the norm. This is what the Knights of Columbus normally does. What is the norm at your parish, and where do those two meet?
1-877-511-5483. I'm peeking over my camera here to check our time. Looks like we have a minute right before the music, but hey, that phone line is wide open. Great questions are coming in indeed. 1-877-511-5483. Hopefully a quick one here off of YouTube. Father, do you have any book recommendations for the laity about or related to the priesthood?
Okay. I would say Archbishop Fulton Sheen's The Priest is Not His Own. I would say Marmion's The Priest's Way to God. I would say The Eternhood by Cardinal, I forget his name, that one. Those would probably be my top hits for books on the priesthood. I'm sure if I had a little more time, I could mentally prepare a longer list, but those are three big ones, especially Sheen's The Priest is Not His Own is an excellent book on the priesthood.
We like to link any
Priestly Fatherhood as well by contemporary, I forget, but Priestly Fatherhood.
We'll see if we can find it during the break. And we also, for all of our listeners and viewers, we do like to link any resources that Father recommends in the show notes. So be sure to get a look for those too, especially Bishop Fulton J. Sheen's book, The Priest is Not His Own. And we'll also mention the others. Well, it looks like, Mariana, I see your call coming up. You're going to be our first caller up right after the break. In the meantime, a question out of Italy about being a Catholic and then later joining Jehovah's Witnesses. Hey, I'm Jordan Pacheco. We'll be right back right after the break.
If the cares and anxieties of life are weighing you down, come to the St. Thomas More House of Prayer and allow the Lord to refresh your soul. The St. Thomas More House of Prayer is a Catholic retreat center devoted to praying and promoting the Liturgy of the Hours. You'll find a tranquil atmosphere that's ideal for deep prayer, whether as an individual or for a group retreat. We're located at 365 Hill City Road in Cranberry, Pennsylvania. Make your reservation today or learn more at liturgyofthehours.org. You can also call us at 814-676-1910. That's 814-676-1910. We would love to help you experience the Liturgy of the Hours and discover the prayer that will change your life.
I'm Jim Havens, host of The Simple Truth, heard weekdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network.
Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. That verse shattered me. I stopped everyone on the street, Jim. I said, excuse me, do you know there's a God? Do you know you can know him? I wanted a ladder tall enough to reach the moon, to tell the world that there's a Savior.
That's The Simple Truth, weekdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on the Station of the Cross.
At 3 weeks after conception, the baby's brain is dividing into 3 main parts. The circulatory system is fully functioning, and the baby's respiratory and digestive systems are forming. You were once this 3-week embryo developing in your mother's womb. Human life is sacred. Think about it. CoalitionForLife.com.
For the weekly show lineup or resources from past episodes, check out our show page at thestationofthecross.com or watch our live video feeds on Facebook, YouTube, or Rumble to interact with the show team and submit your questions in real time. Just search for Ask a Priest Live.
God bless you, listeners and viewers all. Welcome back to Ask a Priest Live. I'm your host, Jordan Pacheco. Hope y'all are doing well. Hey, I got Father Joseph Dalimata with me, Fraternity of St. Peter, and I can't believe we're always halfway through the show when we are, but here we are nonetheless. So go on and get those questions in. 1-877-511-5483. Mariana in New Hampshire. Hey, thank you so much for calling in. And what's your question for Father?
Good evening. Thank you for taking my call. Hello, Father. I am a revert. I came back 15 years ago after being leaving for the Protestant Church for 3 decades. And I recently had a priest come and bless sacramentals, and I hadn't had sacramentals blessed since I was a child. And he didn't use holy water, and I thought I remembered holy water being part of the blessing of sacramentals. He prayed over these sacramentals that I've collected, and I just wonder, is that is holy water an option, or is there a specific way or different ways?
Yeah, Mariana, thanks so much for the question. And it's never too late to say welcome back, 15 years back in the church. And I'm just curious, are a lot of those sacramentals things where they had when you were younger, or are they kind of things you've gotten since you came back?
These are, I lost everything in, one of those horrible where you lose everything situations. And so these were newer things, statues and rosaries, my father's crucifix. I did have some statues that belonged to my mother. She was a convert. And so I laid them all out, but he said a prayer over them, and I thought there'd be holy water involved. I just didn't know any other, I've never seen it done any other way.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So I guess I have 2 things to say. One is certainly what Father did was not, I would say it was not bad in the sense that, okay, praying and invoking God's blessings upon these things, I would say can't go wrong, That being said, the church does have a ritual that is fairly clearly laid out, and they are the sort of published texts, approved texts for the blessings that a priest can use as an administrator of the spiritual goods of the church. And so the use of specific texts and specific rituals are sort of commended to him, and he is the custodian of the treasures of the church. And so without getting into the theology of blessings particularly, we would say that the norm is for a priest to use a blessing published by the authority of the church and to use the ritual that is included there. Now, in the traditional rites, almost every sacramental blessing then has a note at the end that says something like, and then it is sprinkled with holy water, or sometimes it happens in the middle of the blessing, depending on what we're blessing. So it sounds like what Father did was, invoke God's blessing upon these things, but the norm would certainly be that they would be blessed with the church's ritual and the administration of holy water, very powerful sacramental in itself, that tradition that's very, very ancient in the church. So would I say that somehow there's a problem, and unless you get these things blessed properly, there's no good stuff in your life or whatever? I wouldn't say that, but I would say, if you wanted to have a priest say, I know there's a blessing for rosaries and a blessing for images, and that we use holy water for those things. I think it'd be reasonable for you to say that you wanted that and to have that done in that way, because as far as I know, even in the new ritual, the use of holy water is normative. That being said, I've been in situations where I didn't have holy water, and I've blessed things, some of the best blessings I have memorized. Or if I'm just in a tight spot, I don't know what to do, I'll kind of bless, but always make it clear that if they want something sort of formally blessed, they should, do so when I have, a ritual and holy water and those sorts of things. So I hope that answers your question. I don't know if that clarifies anything for you.
And I think I can safely consider them blessed if I was to give them as gifts, I'm assuming. He did say the correct ritual prayer.
Yeah, I think so then. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, thank you.
1-877-511-5483. Going to get those questions in, friends. 1-877-511-5483. Let's take a spin over to YouTube. Pelican LA. Interesting question here. Ever since being part of an extraordinary form community, I've noticed that people tend to use the phrase, God reward you, when being thankful for something. It kind of bothers me because I feel like it turns the good thing that they are saying thank you for into something that was done to get rewarded for, and not just because it was the right thing to do. It also seems to speak more of a transactional relationship with God. Father, am I overthinking this?
Yeah. I think you're probably overthinking it, to be honest. As soon as you read that, Jordan, I was reminded of a phrase that I hear often in Spanish, which is "que Dios le pague," and it's literally "may God pay you, may God reward you." I think it's a very phrase in Spanish. I mean, okay, could you break it down in that way? I would say you would only break it down in that way if you already had preconceived notions that trads were entrenched in a transactional relationship with God and are insecure in accepting favors, and so feel like they have to make sure you get something in return. I'm not saying that that's completely false. I mean, that may be a particular fault of people who have a more, I would say, dogmatic approach to God. And I think that's true in my experience. But I mean, I use that phrase. I think it's just a way of saying, like, God bless you, God reward you for your charity. I don't assume that they did it for a reward, or I wouldn't say that. Like, if it was obvious to me that they were doing it for reward, I wouldn't say, like, well, like, may God give you what you want, you mercenary son of a gun. Like, I wouldn't say that. I would probably, but I think when people say God reward you, it's just a way of praying that, that you would be blessed for your action of charity. So I think you are overthinking it a little bit. That being said, is it possible somebody could be entrenched in that mindset and use it in that way? Absolutely. I wouldn't assume that was the case about anyone who said that, for sure.
So it's time to get Ask a Priest Live merch. And congratulations, Father, because there's a slogan I'm going to use all week. May God give you what you want, you mercenary son of a gun, which is what I'm going to start using to bless people, to ask God's blessing upon people. So thanks for that. I needed that.
Well, I hope I get that mug in the mail.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Daniel, let's make it happen. We're sending this to all of our priests. Great question here from Anonymous out in Italy, or at least they were baptized in Italy. Anonymous says, I was baptized Catholic in Italy, but when I was 13 years old, my mother joined the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I was baptized again in their cult. I started to notice their lies about the church and even about their own attendance. I am completely out of this cult, and now I'm going back to the church. My question is it true that your first baptism is sealed and a second baptism therefore doesn't count?
The language of sealing is not something we really use in the Catholic Church. But if you were baptized in the Catholic Church in the Trinitarian form with water, then your first baptism was valid, and your second ceremony in the Jehovah Witnesses Church had no relationship whatsoever to the state of your soul, and doesn't mean anything sacramentally. So don't base yes, if you were baptized properly, assuming that that's the case in the Catholic Church, then you were baptized, and the second baptism doesn't really mean anything. I mean, it means something, but not.
Well, and just a reminder too, for Jehovah's Witnesses are not Trinitarian, so they don't even baptize. I baptize you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. So even for anonymous, I think it'd be fair probably to say, Father, right, that it wasn't even that a second baptism took place. It's just like if a Jehovah's Witness converted to Catholicism, for instance, they would have to actually be baptized, and it wouldn't be conditional. It'd be yeah.
Right, and I have baptized Jehovah's Witness converts, or at least one. I think, yeah, at least one, maybe two. Yeah, their ceremony is not a baptism anyway. Even if it were a Catholic baptism a second time, it wouldn't be a baptism because you're already baptized, and so like it would be the ceremony. But you know what I mean? So I mean, but yes, the point is even in the Jehovah's Witness situation, you still have to receive baptism. So the Jehovah's Witness ceremony is not actually baptism; they just call it baptism. Let's put it that way.
Second question here from Anonymous. I also wear a crucifix that I've had since my baptism that they wanted me to throw away. I'm glad, however, that I stood strong. We are too Anonymous. Hey, welcome back, by the way. My question is, interesting. My question is how do you know if one's wedding band is from a melted crucifix, and would that even be a problem? And if it and there's an addition, and if it is from a melted crucifix, does one have to take care of it a certain way?
Okay, Jordan, feel free to kick me off the show and never invite me back if this is inappropriate, but that's kind of a weird question. Is that a weird question?
You saw me kind of puzzling over Anonymous. This is a very, very particular question, but yeah, it's kind of like, I kind of want to see this wedding band now. Fun fact.
I'm more curious about like, why is he asking that question? I mean, it makes me think in my mind that like somewhere out there making wedding rings out of a melted crucifix is a thing, but that has never crossed my consciousness
our threshold hasn't crossed our door just yet.
I've heard a lot of weird concerns. That one is new.
Daniel's typing. He said it could be an Italian thing? ? We do have some viewers in Italy. Hey, can you guys comment? Is this a thing?
Yeah. Does anyone know about like a tradition? I mean, would that be a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, I could see how they're like, oh, we made it out of the melted crucifix of our great grandparents, whatever. Like, would that be a bad thing? I don't know. I mean, and what to do with it? Like, I guess I don't know. I guess I'd have to know more about the specifics of that ceremony. I have very little to authoritative to say on that. Father doesn't always know best. Maybe that's
but that's our slogan for the show. See, that's why I'm going to kick you off now, because sorry. Now that's just contradiction. Yeah. Sorry, that's the end of the show. Let's pull the plug. But no, the only thing I can think of, Father, is this. So all I can think of is in the history of Charlemagne, right? They made the iron crown is made out of one of the nails that crucified our Lord, of course. So I think that maybe if you could have a metal crucifix, you could melt, and maybe it is an Italian thing. You could melt a crucifix into a ring, and so I guess that the ring would therefore be blessed before you would have to bless it again as a wedding. I don't know. Am I making sense here?
No, because even with every sacramental, like if something breaks, it's considered no longer blessed. Like if a child, you refinish it. So like an altar breaks, you can't just stick it back together. So in fact, like that's one of the respectable way to dispose of blessed items is if you tear them up or break them and then bury it, whatever. I'm sure there's a million questions on this about how to dispose of all the millions of rosaries and holy cards that people get. But so yeah, I mean, I think in Charlemagne's crown, they set one of the nails into it. I don't know if they used the nail to reshape, which would be different. I'm imagining some sort of like monkish Sauron, like melting crucifixes into rings, then using them for like spiritual warfare and getting hold on people. Like if that's a thing, like get rid of it. I don't, as Saint Teresa says, I don't give a fig for the devil and his machinations. So Yeah, this is just so curious. I feel like we could just sort of
this is one of those questions that has they're more begged questions than the answer. Anonymous, I'm going to tell you what, okay, because this is a really great. Your first question was awesome. The second question is too, but let me tell you, Anonymous, you sent this in via email. Will you just send us a picture of the wedding band or the crucifix or the melted? I don't know. I just need to see it now. We'll have a visual. Father Dalimata will be back on and we'll kind of gawk at this thing to see if it needs to be cast into the fire, Isildur, or not. So
yeah. My main question is like, why are we asking this question?
Because that's what we're here for. Father knows best until you completely destroyed that a few minutes ago.
I just lost all moral authority whatsoever on this show. I'll never be back. I'm gonna be defrocked on social media.
There it is. Yep.
Never.
That's right. Daniel, we should have stuck with the AI priests.
This is the AI priest, didn't you know?
Oh, I knew it! Total. There we go. The show's been completely exposed. Well, speaking of exposing of the show, hey, we only have one more segment after the break, friends. And Dominique, I see your question there on YouTube. Anonymous, I also see another question, a question about possession. Oh, this question would have been great for our Exorcist special, but we're going to try to get through those questions and as many other ones as we can, friends, right after the break. Only a couple minutes away. I'm Jordan Pacheco. Don't go anywhere. One more segment with Father Dalimata, and we'll be right back right after the break. God bless you.
Hi, Joe McLean here, host of A Catholic Take, heard on the Station of the Cross each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern. A bold synthesis of information and inspiration, keeping you up to date on the news and issues that you may have missed from a courageous Catholic perspective. That's A Catholic Take, weekday morning, 7 a.m. right here on the Station of the Cross and the free iCatholic Radio mobile app. Download it today. God love you.
Catholic radio has just been a lifesaver for me. I still listen to it every day. I start my day with it. I listen to it all day long as much as I can. I am very grateful for it.
It's just an amazing thing to have, as I am new to Catholicism. Obviously, it's not only helping me, but it's helping so many other people on their walk.
Thank you. God bless you for iCatholic Radio. It has changed my life.
Donate today at thestationofthecross.com.
Here at the Station of the Cross, we proudly bring the truths of the Catholic faith to countless listeners through radio and mobile devices, and we're grateful for the feedback we've received.
I'm a widower, parent of 3 almost adults, and listen to you guys around the clock. Father McTigg, Society of Jesus, he's wonderful. Mother Miriam, of course, the Divine Office, and many other great things that the Station of the Cross does. So thanks very much for your great work.
I had a friend at work email me and tell me about the Station of the Cross a couple months after it started, and I was so excited. I tuned into it, and I found that I love the Catholic station.
If you've been blessed by listening to the Station of the Cross, let us know. Call 1-877-888-6279, extension 112, then share your testimonial with us.
Never miss an episode by subscribing to our podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check out the free iCatholic Radio mobile app on your Android and Apple mobile devices. Listen on the go at your convenience, and consider leaving us a 5-star review if you're enjoying the show.
God bless you, listeners and viewers all. Hey, welcome back to Ask a Priest Live. I'm your host, Jordan Pacheco. We're joined by Father Joseph Dalimata, Fraternity of St. Peter. By the way, Father, I want you to check your email, but I had Grok, which is Twitter's AI thing, try to figure out what a ring being made from a crucifix looks like, and I think the second image probably is a little bit more visually understandable, but we're gonna have to talk about that later. Hey friends, we got one more segment left, 10 more minutes of show. Go on and call in, please. 1-877-511-5483. Again, that call-in number 1-877-511-5483. But first, I want to thank our friends over at iCatholic Mobile, absolutely great partners with us here at the Station of the Cross. iCatholic Mobile is the only American Catholic phone company and your connection to everything Catholic, strengthening your life, family, and community. So maybe you've been annoyed by all of the bills that you're getting with your big box wireless. Maybe you want the same kind of connection, but with companies a little bit more aligned with your faith. Again, iCatholic Mobile is definitely the solution for you. Going over to iCatholicMobile.com to see all of their rates and also to get more information, including their 5G data, talk, and text, which lets you connect to your faith every time you pick up your phone. And iCatholic Mobile does give a portion of every dollar earned to the Station of the Cross. So they are very, very wonderful patrons here to make sure that we are proclaiming the fullness of the truth with clarity and charity. Again, that's iCatholic Mobile. Gone over to iCatholicMobile.com. Great question here off of YouTube. Father, when you began to seriously discern the priesthood and then began to go through the application process for the seminary, did you begin to have any doubts about entering?
Yes. I would say, yeah, I mean, that's the short answer. This is not a place for a short answer. Yeah, I mean, I had, well, maybe a better way to put it is I was only actually sure about one thing when I decided to go. Well, when I decided to apply to the seminary, I did so pretty much for one motivation, which was that I thought that the seminary would be a better place for me to be than where I was at the time. And that seemed like a sufficient reason to apply. And I thought, well, if I get accepted, then I'll continue with the process. So yeah, I wasn't, I had doubts about whether or not I would be ordained a priest until I was ordained, pretty much. Yeah, but I mean, ordained to the subdiaconate, the diaconate was pretty much when it became obvious. But yeah, I mean, there were doubts every step of the way about whether or not I would become a priest or be happy as a priest, all those sorts of things. So actually, to the point where I had actually decided to leave the seminary my third year in seminary and walked in and told my director that I was ready to go. I was out, I was over, it was done. And he said, why? So I gave him all the reasons. And he said, yeah, those are all great reasons to leave. That's awesome. He said, there's only one good reason for you to stay. And that's because you think that Jesus wants you to be a priest anyway. And unless you can tell me you're certain that he doesn't, then I don't think you should leave until you're ready to say, I am certain that I am not called to the priesthood. So for him, it was kind of the other way around. Like, the amount of doubts you have is not the problem. It's the degree of certainty you have that you're willing to put yourself forward, and that Jesus doesn't say no, basically. I mean, yeah, discernment is a very practical thing in my mind, against all those doubts. Yeah. So good question. Yeah, good question.
That is a great question indeed. And did you ever consider religious life or something else like that? Or was it always, if it was going to be for the church, it was going to be priesthood?
Yeah, I did actually. I went through kind of this phase in seminary for about 8 or 9 months where I was really committed and I was studying hard and I was reading and I was praying and I was like, if we're going to do this, we got to go all the way. Religious life is the only way. It's the most full commitment. It's the perfection of living out the evangelical counsels. We should all become religious. I became very zealous and actually talked with my director about leaving seminary and joining a monastery. And he was like, oh, okay, well, cool your jets a little bit. And he was very prudent. He himself had spent 9 months at a Benedictine monastery in France discerning. And I think he'd even left seminary. That was after he'd been in seminary for a while. I forget the order of things, but he kind of knew that, like, with a monastic vocation in particular, it's important to test the authenticity of that vocation over time and the authenticity of that desire and call. So he said, look, if this lasts for a long time, then we'll look into it. Don't quash it. Don't kick it. Don't edit it off. Just, I'm not going to say, oh, you feel like becoming a monk? Yeah, leave and go to the monastery. He's like, you're already here. We don't want to make a big transition without testing it kind of over time in terms of the authenticity of that desire. So I didn't really seriously consider it until I'd already been in seminary for a while. And then when I did, I said, okay, I'll wait. And then it sort of waned and I realized, like, I'm being overly idealistic and it became clear to me that the active priesthood was where my personality and my vocation, I think, would allow me to thrive the best. Although I have a great love for monastic writings and the monastic tradition, but sometimes, I don't know, I still think about it, but I'm pretty set in my vocations.
1-877-511-5483. Question here from Anonymous. Can a person be possessed against their will without knowing and without dabbling in the occult? And if so, Father, how can they find out?
There are a lot of questions in that question.
Man, we're getting all the questions in the questions today, aren't we?
Yeah, like, can a person be possessed against their will? Certainly, yes. Can a person be possessed without knowing it? I would assume so. I don't know a lot about the experience of being possessed and how aware a person is of that. Can they be possessed without dabbling in things of the occult? That's an interesting question because it definitely is the case that there has to be some degree of contact with the devil in a sort of a more unique or exclusive way under normal circumstances for possession to occur. But I would not be willing to say absolutely no, that, nobody could ever be possessed unless they're involved in the occult. That's certainly not the case. But it's also not the case that that all things being equal, it just sort of happens when there's no exposure to anything of an occult nature, shall we say. But so those are my initial reactions on that. I will, however, directly just sort of state my very sort of bare bones knowledge about the necessary to make and maybe the best way of approaching questions of the demonic. I think it's probably one of the bigger gaps in my own personal formation is a well-rounded understanding and approach to those particular questions. I kind of know the basics, and that's all I kind of desire and have had a call to know in my own personal experience as a priest. I haven't needed much more than that this time, mostly because I just send everything up higher. I was like, okay, go talk to the pastor, go talk to the exorcist of the diocese, go talk to this person. So if it ever becomes practical, I usually have a place to send people, and haven't made too many inroads into that conversation.
Father, an absolute fun show today. Hey, thanks so much for stopping by. And before we go, will you please leave us with your blessing?
Benedictione Beata Maria Semper Virginis Sancti Joseph et Omnium Sanctorum Pax Benedictio Dei Omnipotentis Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti Descendat super vos.
Amen. God bless you, Father. Thank you so much. Yes, listeners and viewers, I know that I totally forgot to ask for the blessing from Father Amato yesterday, so sorry about that, but hey, better to have today too, which totally works out. Tomorrow's going to be a mailbag special with Father Alloy, which means we're going to tackle a lot of these email questions, kind of get our horde down under control. So if you wanted to answer your questions live, that's going to be on Thursday, where we're going to have Father William Rock, Fraternity of St. Peter. Thank you all for watching today. God bless you and God rewards you. I'm Jordan Pacheco, and hey, I will see you all tomorrow for Ask a Priest Live at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Take it easy.
I know one of the most difficult things when you're